What's up, ladies and gents? Noli here. It is day 5 of the Hype Train community event. We have just unlocked the Swat van turret, and I think there's an awful lot to look at with this weapon. What does it change up? What are its weaknesses? Can it actually be used to your advantage, as was discussed in the developer interview? So, first of all, let's get to know our enemy. It will only appear on certain missions, primarily bank missions. You're looking at Diamond Store, bank heists, all of them. Firestarter Day 3, Go Bank, but then also they appear on 4 stores, Watchdogs Day 1 of course, Framing Frame Day 2, the Warehouse in Election Day, and finally Hotston Breakout Day 1. So, some notable appearances. Framing Frame Day 2 is an interesting one. That one will appear if you obviously get ambushed at Day 2, and that's a really fun one. That really changes the dynamic of the heist. Otherwise, you're looking at trucks either barring your progression. The SWAT vans will pull up in Hotston Breakout on the main road, and you'll often get 2 firing from both sides, so there's no real way to hide. Or, as you'll see in the bank heists, they will appear at around about 2 minutes 30, 3 minutes when the first assault wave arrives. Now, the turrets are certainly interesting in their tracking. They are by no means perfect, which is a huge relief. You can actually, on occasions, outrun them, which is interesting. Equally, dodge builds are incredibly effective. I'm not sure how the calculation works, but it seems like I dodge an awful lot more than actually hits me, and the overall damage this weapon does is relatively negligible. It is designed clearly to pin you down in one way or another. That's not to say it won't compound, and it's not irritating, especially if you're heavily armoured, you can't move out the way of it, and you're just going to have to tank that up, and it's going to do huge chunks of your shield. So they can certainly pose a huge threat on different missions, and they're undoubtedly a distraction. Compounding on top of all of this is its tankiness. It has raw tankiness and additional tankiness, so it has huge health pools. 500,000 on Overkill and below, and 700,000 on Death Wish. That is scary, but as I've already said, it has additional innate tankiness in the form of armor plating, which will stop regular bullets from doing any damage, even when you're getting your hit markers, until you blow off the front plating. That can be blown off with, as far as I'm aware, any weapon. Your best option is, as ever, explosives, and explosives will penetrate that as standard and do damage to the turret. As such, your absolute best option against this is the HRL, the RPG added within the Overkill pack. If you've not got that already, I guess this pushes it up the list of important DLCs to buy, in that it is by far the best tool against it. Seems like a bit of a shame, really. The GL40 holds its own. It's not going to do an awful lot of damage on its own accord, but what it will do is again blow off that front plating, and you can use either things with high damage, high rate of fire. You're looking at the minigun, or just potentially good solid damaging weapons like the Thanatos to take these things out. Armor piercing does function slightly better. However, I do believe you still have to blow off certain areas of its armor plating to do damage. I have tested this reasonably extensively, but if someone else has found other evidence on certain difficulties, do let me know. This is all tested on Overkill and Death Wish. Keep that in mind. So I'm not sure how the easier difficulties work, but I imagine Overkill is probably the best place to test, because that's where the vast majority of heists are completed. Now then, moving on to the turret as an option for GenSec, for the enemies within Payday, the police, the good guys really, I guess. It's worth mentioning that while it seems incredibly powerful, it can at times be little more than a nuisance. Yes, it's going to pin you down. Yes, it's going to cause problems, but in a 4-man team, it can only focus you one at a time. Now, if you solo a lot and the AI is utterly blind to this, it's going to stand and it's going to be torn apart by its DPS. Do keep in mind though, the turret is not without its weaknesses. It has really long reload times. You'll clearly see when it's reloading. Its laser, which will point either green, red, or orange, will be orange, and you can easily move from place to place while it is doing that. And it will not stop firing, as far as I'm aware, as long as there is a valid target, at least close to being in its sight. So it will waste an awful lot of its ammo on walls and things. To make that matters worse for the turret, it also has blind spots all around it. Now, keep in mind these are not hugely detrimental to it, in that it's going to be hard for you to maintain your position by the SWAT van. Of course, you can use it as cover on its own, but you know, you're usually reasonably out in the open, so you'll probably be taken out by a bulldozer or a taser or some sort of powerful other special. However, there is one tool that, as was mentioned in the developer interview, may allow you to turn the SWAT turret into an ally. The ECM jammer. You do not need feedback, of course that's going to help with the overall process, but for as long as the ECM jammer is down, it's going to be shooting at the enemies, your enemies. So, this was a huge oversight by whoever made the turret, but I find this to be an interesting rebalance, first of all, of the ECM jammer. The potential for loud ECM jammers has grown. We've already seen that ECM feedback's been buffed, and there's certainly some real viability to maybe everyone using ECM jammers throughout the mission. But this has buffed it a little further, meaning that if you see a guy with 2 ECMs going on a loud mission, thank him before you ever go at him and tell him to put on some goddamn ammo or a med kit. I like that. I genuinely think that's a fantastic change. Looking at how the turret does when it's working on your team, of course you're looking for between 20 to 40, 50 seconds of ECM jammer time, in which it's going to be shooting at your enemies. The damage it's going to do is very similar to what it'll do to you. It's going to be strong because they are AI, they don't have recharging shields. Do keep in mind it's not got the most fantastic accuracy, similar to the turret. It's just going to fire into nowhere occasionally, and it's particularly ineffective the same way as your standard turret against shields. Bulldozers, it's got the DPS, but without those headshots, it's really not going to do too much. As far as multipliers are concerned, I'm not entirely sure how it works. I believe it probably does have headshot multipliers, but as I've already said, its accuracy is utterly random, so don't bank on it to be a huge killing machine. It will, in one way or another, re-avert cops' attention, I believe, and so it can occasionally, as they've said, be used as a tool for your side. And I'm really relieved that is a function of it, but otherwise I just find it to be a slight nuisance within missions. I find myself, A, ignoring it, it's not worth destroying it. If I do want to destroy it, I need my RPG, which, to be perfectly honest, I think I'd often rather use for bulldozers. They're, if anything, a greater threat. It can, as I've already said, be avoided just by running or by using its blind spots, which I think is important, that it has these sort of innate weaknesses as opposed to just being a numerical issue to try and overcome. But overall, I'm not hugely intimidated by it. It will cause problems within certain missions, especially on Death Wish, where it really is difficult to destroy. But I don't feel like it's going to rebalance Payday, and of course it's not in every mission just yet. So there's only been a few missions which it's going to really turn around. Now, do keep in mind how this changes some achievements. I'm not entirely happy with what it's done to the Tabula Rasa achievement. A lot of people are noticing that, seeing as how it's on this side jobs feature this week. Overkill are going to have to take a quick look at that and see exactly how standard bullets are dealing with it. They're essentially making you run, dodge, and avoid it. And one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of this enemy is the fact that it does punish you a little bit for running tanky builds, seeing as how dodge just functions so very successfully against it. Anyway, that's how to deal with the turret. That's my first impressions of it. I've been trying it out an awful lot. As I say, your high explosives, your GL-40s, they're not going to be hugely effective. If you want to take this thing out, you basically want the RPG or the Thanatos, something with huge amounts of damage, something that can easily knock off its front plating. But let's be honest, most of the time, I imagine as time moves on, particularly, these turrets are going to be forgotten on missions, and they're just going to be another nuisance, which may occasionally turn a heist around for you if you've got that one guy sneakily carrying around his ECM feedback. Guys, thanks a lot for watching. See you all in the next one.